So when I initially saw Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought it was okay, but it didn't really blow me away. I actually had a friend, he's a huge fan of Spider-Man, and he kind of gave me a more in-depth look at the character, and it made me want to see the movie again through different eyes. And I'm glad I did, because Spider-Man Homecoming went on to be one of my top Marvel films. It's in my top 10, absolutely. That said, I went into Far From Home with a lot more knowledge on who Peter Parker is and what motivates him. And I think because of that, I enjoyed this movie just a bit much more than I did Homecoming. So let's get into it. Spider-Man Far From Home is directed by John Watts and stars Tom Holland, Marissa Tomei, Zendaya, Samuel L. Jackson, John Favreau, and a whole bunch of others. And it takes up right after the events of Endgame, where Peter is now dealing with the weight of the world, so to everybody's looking to him to step into Tony Stark's shoes. And with all of that responsibility, he's also trying to have a normal teenage life and just hang out with his friends, have a great trip, and possibly tell the girl of his dreams how he feels about her. Spider-Man Far From Home. First of all, I have to say, I really enjoyed this movie because after Endgame, after such emotional pounding and the scope of that movie, I didn't want to have anything that bombastic, so to speak, all over again. And what I love about what they do with these movies, the Peter Parker Spider-Man movies, is it definitely feels like I'm reading a comic book. Like, this is his story, it's contained within his world, and because of that, I get to just relax. And I'm not really, granted, you'll get your twists and your turns, but I'm not really being overpowered by all of the huge special effects and all that sort of world ending sort of thing going on. Not to say that we don't have that sort of stuff here. Visually, this movie, I think it does really well. It does step up a bit. It takes Peter out of Queens, out of New York. We get to see him in a different environment. And for the most, all the locations, I mean, they are what they are. It's Europe, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. It's a lot of, I think my absolute favorite might have been there was a carnival scene that comes up there. So they visit Prague, they visit all these places, and there's a great use of those locations. I also thought that the action set pieces, especially coming down to the end, especially the big final one, was really good. And of course, the final moments with Peter in his, I don't want to give it away too much, but in his ultimate suit, so to speak, I thought that was the strongest moments of the movie. The acting here, of course, Tom Holland, I mean, he's now becoming synonymous with Spider-Man. You may compare him to Tobey Maguire, you may compare him to Andrew Garfield, whoever is your favorite. I think most people will say that Tom Holland is definitely one of the best versions of Peter Parker we've ever gotten. So he's nailing it. I also love that the other characters this time around had a bit more to do. The background characters, from his teachers, his friends, everybody had a little bit more to chew on this time around, and everybody had fun with it. This movie has a lot of laughs to it. Sam Jackson's Nick Fury is in this, and he's very curmudgeonly and grumpy, having to deal with young Peter Parker. There are reasons behind all of that I won't get into, but I have to say, I love seeing these different versions of Nick Fury. We get Nick Fury, the stoic spy, the badass. We got a different Nick Fury in Captain Marvel, and then we got a different Nick Fury here. So I really like what they're doing, and they're giving Sam Jackson a chance to play this character in many different iterations. And of course, it brings me all around to our my new favorite, Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, Quentin Beck. And he nails it. I think Jake was the perfect choice for this character, especially when certain things are revealed. He gets to really be this character in the best way possible, you know. And Jake has always been, if you've seen his movies before, of course most everybody has, you know, he can do evil, he can do good, he can do in between. He has a really, I think I don't know, I don't know much about the character of Mysterio other than, you know, some of the comics I've read. I don't know anything in depth about this character, but he brings him to life on screen in the best way possible. And I loved his look. I think the character really, you know, you would think this giant fishbowl head would look ridiculous. It actually looks really cool. The cape, everything worked for me. So that was all the positives to me. Like I said, guys, I think this is a really great story. It's Peter having to deal with, you know, not just loss, but all of this responsibility that he doesn't really know if he wants this responsibility. He's a teenager. He just wants to live his life and have some fun. And everybody's looking to him to be Earth's mightiest hero. And, you know, I think they do a fantastic job of balancing his grief with his responsibilities. You know, this is a character that Peter Parker is. It's his motto, you know, great power, great responsibility and all of that. But he's still just a kid. And I'm glad that they took the time to focus on that. That said, I will say this movie, for me, the first act, it goes a bit longer than I would have liked, you know. This movie is, like I said, it's very much self-contained. It's Peter's story. He's, you know, far from home. He's taking a trip. And the first half of this movie, it takes a while to get to the meat of it, so to speak, you know, to get to why it is things are happening and the introduction of Mysterio. All of that really doesn't come in until very much midway into this movie, into the second half. It kicks off the second half. And I just felt like that went on a tad too long. Another little issue I had is there was something that didn't quite look as good, as polished, as tight as Homecoming, and that is Spider-Man's movements. I don't know if it's the costume was a little bit too polished so that you couldn't really see the muscle movements. I don't know. I'm not saying this correctly, but something about the CG was a tad off for me in places when he would jump or when he would move in his Spider-Man costume. It just didn't look as natural as it did in Homecoming and Civil War and that sort of thing. That when you saw it there, to me, it really felt, you could feel the weight of the character in every scene. It felt like that was somebody actually swinging from building to building, and it does get polished up. Don't get me wrong. Like the final act, it's really good. It's really well polished. It's really well executed. But just there's some earlier scenes, and like I said, I don't know if it's a change in costumes, and certain costumes you just are not seeing his movements as clearly, but it just felt a little wooden for me in those places. But overall, guys, Far From Home, I definitely really enjoyed this one. We get another fantastic villain in Mysterio. I would love more of this villain. Spider-Man has one of the best rogues galleries there is, and I'm sure they're not gonna just reuse or rehash villains over and over again. But at the same time, there's some villains that you just want to see again. Michael Keaton's Vulture is another villain that I absolutely loved and I would love more of. And I have to say, Mysterio is another villain. I would love to see more of him again if possible. So definitely, I would give this one an inch. I think I gave Spider-Man Homecoming an 8 out of 10. Maybe higher. I can't remember clearly, but for me, Spider-Man Far From Home is an 8.5 out of 10. This is definitely a solid showing by Marvel. You can tell there's a lot of love for this character, Peter Parker / Spider-Man. And that said, without getting into anything spoilerish, that ending post-credits, I don't know. My mind was blown. And I can't I can't wait to see where they go with it, because in the comics, it's not so good. But I trust Marvel. I trust the MCU. I have enough faith in them that I think they know what they're doing. So bring it on and let's see where they're going with it. Spider-Man Far From Home gets an 8.5 out of 10. And that's it, guys, because I'm actually rushing out to see it again with my brother. So I have to wrap things up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to hit that like button. It's really appreciated. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you guys know what to do with my face over there. And if you want to see past videos, you can check them out right there. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.